So today, Carlos and I are diving in Jackson County, Wisconsin, in a submerged rock quarry called Wazee Lake. It is the deepest waterway in Wisconsin. I believe the deepest point in it is a little over 350 feet. So we got geared up, went down, we got down to we followed the line down to a barrel filled with stone and a bunch of other junk. That barrel is down about 150 or 165 feet. When we reached that depth at that barrel, we left our DPVs there, and Carlos also left several tanks for his bailout decompression stops if needed in the event his rebreather failed. The plan was to get down to around 300 and then on our decompression stops use DPVs, which stands for Diver Propulsion Vehicle, to go horizontal and hold our depth doing our decompression stops. I'm diving with a pair of rebreathers. I use them as side mounts. I swap them back and forth throughout the dive. So I did not carry any additional tanks to stage. So eventually we got down off the walls, across the roads, down more walls. Got down to the depth we were shooting for, and the line. So we have to follow a line down there because we need to be able to get back to our tanks and DPVs up where we left them. So we didn't really want to lose track of those lines. But in the meantime, we were following a line down, and the line in many places is covered with silt. So several times during the dive, we lifted the line up off the bottom or off the sidewall, and it creates massive amounts of silt. Right when we were near our target point, we must have rolled a bunch of rocks because this giant flume of silt came up. It was actually quite impressive. And then because it was a rock rolling down through all this silt, and I think at that depth the cloud of silt just is different than it is in shallower depths. But anyway, we turned to dive at that point. I'm like, we need to get out of here and be sure we don't lose that line. Right here you can see where that rock was coming down and where that ball of silt started. And then I switched over to Carlos's camera here. He was right in front of it. It's pretty impressive. So after we turned the dive, we gradually worked our way back up the walls, which are pretty interesting. I mean, going down to that depth, there's a lot of territory to cover coming back up. And on your ascent, you have to remove air from your dry suit, your BCD, and your counter lung and your rebreather. And if you have a second rebreather, you have to take care of that second one too. You have to keep releasing the air that's going to build on there as well. And then swap them out to be sure that your computers are synced up so that your decompression stops are accurate. Depending on, if you do it correctly, you can use either rebreather and either computer for your decompression stops. If I have a decompression stop, decompression time that's say an hour and a half, I have found that if I do it correctly, both computers will be within a minute of decompression times. So here you can see as we ascend, we're starting to get a little bit of ambient daylight coming back down. I think you start seeing light at about 200 feet on your way back. And then as we ascend, you just get more and more light. So now we're back up to about 150 feet. We're retrieving our DPVs. Carlos is hooking his tanks back on. Once Carlos had his tanks all hooked back on, we used the DPVs to slant us up to our first decompression stop, which was about 110 feet. By the time we started ascending and hit our first decompression stop, from that point on we had about an hour and 20 minutes of decompression time to fill. So we drove around Wazee with the DPVs. We went through the little forest areas, over some platforms, some training areas, until our decompression stops were satisfied. Dive time was an hour and 52 minutes. Max depth was 303 feet. Average depth was 77. Gas mix at depth, I used 11% O2, 50% helium. Here's the chart data. The white line is the depth, the blue line is the temperature, the red is the do not pass zone. Water temperature at the surface was 73 degrees. At the bottom it was 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Air temperature was nice. It was in the 80s. Beautiful day.